Before we begin, the name of the show is Turn This Off. Frankly, we thought it would be good for marketing and at the same time make us sound kind of cool. Now, having said that, if you're part of the 5% of people wanting the same drab, boring, sleep-inducing content, by all means, yes, turn it off. This is Turn This Off. We're all about the journey, the struggles, and the triumphs. If it's great people doing great things, we're talking to them. It's your ticket to discovering the untold stories, the hidden gems, and the voices that deserve to be heard. Turn off the mundane and turn on the extraordinary. Turn this off. And now your host, Jordan Pauly.
Okay, here we are.
All right.
Episode 6. I have with me Dr. Mike Greiwe. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Doctor, coach, author, entrepreneur, dad, husband. A lot of different labels there.
That's right. Yeah, we try to keep all the balls in the air.
You wear a lot of different hats.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the, so I met Mike, our sons play soccer together. And I think that's when I first met you. And in the spirit of not asking you first, I go, what do you do? You know, I don't care for that question right away. I'd like to get to know the person first. And then I started uncovering all that you do. I think I saw you at a football game and you were the medical, team doctor on the sideline. And I'm like, okay, so I know that he's coaching. I know he's a team doctor. I know that he's an orthopedic surgeon and a husband. So I'm starting to uncover all these things. And then I'm like, I heard from somebody else, oh yeah, he wrote a book. And then I got online and I looked, I'm like, okay, yes, he wrote a book too. I'm like, what am I doing with my life?
No.
It's incredible.
Oh, thanks, Jordan. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just enjoy wearing those hats. You know, it's fun to do all these things. And I love being part of the community.
Yeah.
So that's what I enjoy. Yeah.
And for context too, you are stopping over here on Memorial Day on a holiday right after a surgery.
Yeah, but we're heading down the lake later, so it's all good.
Yeah.
Family's happy.
We need to get you out of here in time to do that, or else Molly will be pissed at me.
No, we're going to be good. So, but no, I'm excited to do this. It's going to be fun. I've been, watching some of your pods, and they're pretty cool, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Well done.
Yeah. Again, it's in the spirit of, it's a little bit selfish, getting to know people better, but two, trying to, I look at Rogan and these other podcasts, of course, on a completely different scale, and I think they're fascinating. What's interesting about those is they're also, Rogan's interviewing quite famous people and, people with some stature. It's just like, like our area has people in our own backyard that I think are quite interesting. So how can we dive into that a little bit deeper?
No, I love that. Everybody's got their story to tell, right? You do, I do, everybody's got their thing that they've done. And I think everybody's got some unique, qualities that are valuable for other people. So
I agree.
That's cool.
100%. Yeah. So let's start with, you're born and raised in, are you born and raised in Florida? You're from Florida.
Yeah.
Give us some context there.
Born and raised Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
Mom and dad, my dad was from Tampa originally. Mom's from New Jersey. So they settled down there, and I grew up, I think the first 17 years of my life were spent in Tampa.
Okay.
Love it there, but happy to be here in Northern Kentucky also. But yeah, I've been there. We go back 3-4 times a year just to visit. I've still got my entire family there. My brother, two half sisters, mom and dad are still there.
Okay. So then are you a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, or are you
100%.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, they're my NFC team. I still got the Bengals as the AFC team, but the Bucs have been, I've been a diehard since they were the cellar dwellers in the NFC. And
you still play for them. Was it Warren Sapp?
Warren Sapp,
Yeah.
number 99.
Warren Sapp. And then there's a couple others. Work Done. I don't even know if that
Work Done. Yeah, Mike Allstott. Work Done was that shifty, halfback. He could just dance in the backfield, make people miss, and just, run up and down the field. He played for Florida State. And then Mike Allstott, the A-Train, was also same time frame. That was kind of when they won the Super Bowl back.
Yeah.
I think it was 2004.
I think that's the only reason I remember those names is because they were larger than life figures that you saw on TV all the time.
Yeah, they were the big dogs there. But it was fun. It was just cool to actually have a team that you just been rooting for, and they're just terrible for so long. And then finally they win the Super Bowl, and you're like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
It was that perfect age. I think I was I don't know, 24 or something like that.
Sure.
It wins, so it's pretty cool.
So then how did you feel when Brady went there?
I was super pumped actually, because I thought Brady was still like capable of doing great things. And, sure enough, he was. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Tom Brady, that guy, to be able to play into his 40s, to play like he did, to really extend his career, the way he did too. It's something that you don't see, but he lived the life, right? He lived taking care of his body and doing all the right things to make sure that he was at his best. So I had a lot of respect for him, and I was fired up when he came.
Yeah. I'd be surprised if we saw it come back. Oh, I'm just saying, like, I don't know.
He's like MJ.
Yeah.
Like he's going to come back after a few years being out.
I think so. Could. I really do.
Could.
I think people like that, I could see getting bored with civilian life or just like not competing anymore. He's a competitor.
Totally.
And not doing that. I mean, didn't Brett Favre came back?
Yeah. I mean,
same mentality, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that they can't like let that dog loose, like, normal everyday life, right? And they have to. It's like part of them. So yeah, you might be right. I mean, if he doesn't have success in the booth, we'll see.
Yeah.
Right. I think he's supposed to be like doing some announcing, I think, right?
Oh, that'd be great. I haven't kept track of it. I'm on the opposite side. Like I want to be a Brady fan. Just hard. He's so good, right? It's just like you almost want to villainize people that
are that good.
Yeah, and it's not the right thing to do. But
I get it, man. It's funny because either you have a love-hate relationship with Tom Brady, but he's been the guy, that's really defined football over the last several years. So yeah, you can either love him or you're gonna hate him.
Respect him. I respect him. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So then you're born and raised in Florida. You went to walk me through number one question. When did you know that you wanted to get in the medical field? And did you know, okay, I want to be an orthopedic surgeon? To walk me through when that aha moment was of, I know I want to get into the medical field.
Yeah, it was really interesting. So my grandfather was the first physician in my family. He grew up in Cincinnati, oddly enough.
Okay.
And went to Detroit, did like a residency there. Yeah, it was at Henry Ford Hospital, and then moved to Tampa, and he did pediatrics. So he was there when very few people were doing pediatrics. He was the guy who essentially raised most of Tampa, like, from a pediatric standpoint. Early in the day, there might have been like 3 or 4 pediatric people there. And he was so involved in the community that growing up playing sports, just being around people, they'd always be like, hey, are you Dr. Greiwe's son? I'm like, no, I'm his grandson, And, but it was pretty cool because he was just so invested in the community and people just loved him, And that's why I said, being a doctor is really worthwhile because you can have such an impact on the community at large and just be that person that people trust and care about. And I'd always wanted to be a hero. First thought I would want to be like a sports, guy. And I thought maybe be a professional athlete, but you look at me and you're like, no, you're not going to be a professional athlete, but you might become a doctor. And so that was kind of number 2 on the list. And I got into orthopedics like later when I just love sports so much and just love the way the body moved. But my grandfather was really the defining thing for me, the person that led me to medicine.
That's awesome. And yeah, you answered one of my other questions. It's like, what was that childhood dream? Right. And you said it was to play sports or be an athlete.
Yeah, I wanted to be a professional athlete. It was baseball, it was soccer, and, it was a dream of mine probably up until high school, and then just realized wasn't probably in the cards for me.
But you ran track at Notre Dame.
I did. Yeah.
Which I actually found out the other day as we were just sitting after this, the soccer party we were at.
Right.
It's like, you ran? Yeah. Which makes sense now. Because for context for listeners, at soccer games or in tournaments, while we're waiting to maybe get on the field or play, Mike will go grab a quick 3-mile jog in. Yeah. Just like, I'm sitting there, reclining back in my chair, managing children. Mike's just running circles around the area, which I think is great. So you ran at Notre Dame. Yeah.
So I ran, I was actually a walk-on. So I was not recruited, but I knew I wanted to go to Notre Dame. That was something my family had done. And my grandfather, my dad, my mom had all gone. And so it was a big deal for me to like, go to Notre Dame, and I had some opportunities to play soccer, but ultimately like running was the thing that I thought I was going to be able to do at Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried out, made the team. I think I was like 16th on the cross country squad my freshman year. But the coach gave me a chance. He said, look, we take walk-ons occasionally, but you're gonna have to put the work in, like, and that was like the only words he actually said to me for 2 years. I did not get spoken to by the head coach, Joe Piani, who's an amazing guy, but for 2 years didn't have a whole lot of interactions with him. But the women's coach was encouraging me. The assistant coaches, they all were like, Mike, keep going, just keep grinding. So ended up running distance at Notre Dame, and my last year was a captain.
That's great.
Cross country.
That's
pretty cool.
The redemption arc right there.
It really was. Yeah. Yeah, it was neat. It was neat. It's just like life, man. You just put in the work. We were talking about this the other day, right? Just put in the work day after day, and good things happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's really cool story in regards to walking on. And I can't speak from experience or that people take it for granted, but I imagine you probably had a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, right? Something to prove.
Yeah.
When I'm making assumptions here, but I would imagine if someone gets a scholarship, they know they're good, they're on the team, whatever. They just continue to kind of work hard day in and day out, do the thing. But you come in as a walk-on, you have a chip on your shoulder, you got to work even harder.
Yeah, 100%. I think part of it for me was I played a lot of sports where there was subjectivity. Soccer was subjective, and I always felt like I didn't quite get the opportunity that I should have gotten because of my size. I was like literally like probably 5'10", 115 pounds freshman year in college, right? So nobody was looking at me to come in and make an impact on their soccer team. But I looked at running as a way to objectify my hard work. And that was really what drew me to cross country and to track, because I didn't want anybody to tell me that I wasn't good enough, because I knew I'd outwork anybody. And that was really what drove me to be in that sport and then take it to the next level and just keep working. And I knew like the hard work, but yeah, chip on my shoulder as a walk on. I had a lot of respect for my teammates, but I always knew like hard work wins the day. So that's been my belief from a very young age for some reason.
And you still run to this day, which I think is one of those things. If you look at where people go after college with sports, if you're fortunate, you go and you can play professional ball. Play arena. I'm talking about football. You can play in other leagues and Europe and other places. But running, I think, is one of those kind of like timeless things that you can carry with you as long as you take care of your body.
Absolutely.
Right? So being able to do that, I think, is probably translated. And I don't know. I love running. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
It's harder for me now than it has been in the past,
right?
because of orthopedic reasons,
different things, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I think you're right. Running and cycling and swimming, golf, tennis, these are timeless sports, like you mentioned, because, people can do it into their old age. But I think doing something, every day is beneficial. So whatever that might be for anybody, it's helpful for me to just kind of like work the stress out, think about life a little bit, and just have time to yourself. So it's still been like an integral part of like who I am and what I try to do every day.
Yeah.
At some point, I'm probably not gonna be able to do it anymore. Maybe, I don't know, but I'm just gonna keep doing it as long as I can. So
yeah, I think I imagine with your experience in orthopedics, like the technology will advance. You'll probably be like the first person to try something out, and you'll get a bionic, something or other.
We'll see, but yeah, I agree. I mean, it's you just want to keep doing it, whatever it is. I know you work out, you still stay fit, stay active. So it's just about doing something every day.
I have to move.
Yeah.
I don't like things start to hurt.
Totally. That's what it is. I mean, it's actually true. I think there's probably no studies to back it up, but like I know movement just helps people. Even with like mild arthritis, you move, it's a good thing. So, there's definitely a lot to just staying active. And, when people retire, you hear that thing, like people retire and then they go downhill really quickly. It's the same thing. Like the mind needs to keep going. So does the body. You got to keep the body going.
I was going to get to this later, but we can just get to it now. When I came out of college, very active in college, man, as soon as I took a desk job, I feel like things went downhill. As soon as I started sitting in the seat, and getting tight hip flexors.
Yeah.
And not having the same range of motion. And then, yeah, like I had screwed on my knee, I had a knee surgery, etc. But then you have muscle atrophy, right? So then your muscles start getting weaker. Now I have weak glutes. Now I have a weak core. Now I have instability. Now I'm walking with a gait and I don't even realize it. Now I have a torn labrum. Now I need hip surgery.
Yeah.
Right? Then I get hip surgery, muscle atrophy on this side. Now I'm limping on this side. Then I tear the other side. So, and I love your perspective maybe for younger people as we think about, the importance of movement and the importance of not sitting all the time. I know standing desks are a big thing right now, but from your experience as a surgeon and things that you see day in, day out, what are some preventable things maybe, or some suggestions for people to not have to, again, deal with this stuff so early on? And then I think about texting too. I think about how I'm sitting right now.
Yeah.
My posture.
Yeah.
My shoulders are hunched forward. I'm here with my phone in front all day. I'm here on a keyboard all day.
Yeah.
Right. And then I have like forward head tilt, and I have posterior, or I have anterior pelvic tilt.
Right.
You're probably like, how do you know all these things? It's like, cause I've studied my body, cause I'm a wreck. So to my question, what are some things, some suggestions, I think, for anybody, but specifically young people too, as we're looking like the future generations, that they can do to help prevent some of these things?
Yeah, it's a great question. So first of all, you're absolutely right. I think right now, like the way that we interact with the world is like this, right? We're like hunched forward. We got a phone in front of us. We got a keyboard. So how do you counteract that, right? And then it's a very I think it's pretty simple. But there's a couple things that I would say are important. Number one, it's posture. You mentioned the posture part. Posture is key, because as soon as you start rolling your shoulders in, I see it all the time because I'm a shoulder specialist, but you start having like anterior rotator cuff problems, people in their 40s, 50s, 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So get those shoulders back, right? You want to work on the posterior part. Everybody's always working on the front, right? What can I do to get my chest bigger? What can I do to work on my abs, maybe my quads? But they forget there's hamstrings back there.
Mm-hmm.
There's the upper back, there's the low back, those activities are key. So you definitely want to work on the back side of the body too, because that's what's going to get you back like this. And it's always kind of it's a struggle, because we're all a society that just hunches in, right? Mm-hmm. But I think we got to get back behind. So however you do that, whether you're, running, cycling, if you're in the weight room, you make sure you work on the posterior chain. We call that the posterior chain, not the anterior chain, because we're always working about what we can see.
Right.
But it's what we can't see that's actually more important.
The glamour muscles.
Exactly. We're working on all the glamour muscles, right? But we forget about the fact that there's a whole group of muscles behind us that we need to start working on so that you're balanced. Otherwise, you start having some cervical stuff, you start having shoulder issues, you might have some anterior hip stuff. All that stuff starts to kind of come together. But you're right. It's it happens in that transition time. We don't even realize it. But we get into a job and we're in the desk, and then it's things start happening. You get busy, kids, life, all this stuff happens, and you forget about the exercise part.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I think I've done research on my own for probably the last 8 years, because I've been just a snowball effect of a wreck of a body.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, and you can tell me because you're the doctor, I feel like what you're describing is the push and pull between two things, right? So if I go and I do a door stretch, right, just do this, it hurts so bad, right? Because my pecs are really tight. Everything's up here all the time.
Yeah.
It feels great.
Yeah.
But I'm very tight up here because everything's in front. So I have been really focusing on how to counteract all the stuff up here. So that's the back, the glutes, the lower back, even though the lower back's hard. I don't really know how to isolate that. But so would you say it's kind of that push and pull to keep you in an equilibrium, keep you in a middle state?
Yeah, it's a great point, because once we've established the front becoming dominant, now you got to stretch the front in order to help yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So you got big, strong, tight pecs, your deltoids, biceps, everything's working. Your quads, everything. Then you got to start stretching there, right? So now you got to start stretching the back, stretching the front. Strengthen the back so you can kind of get balanced.
Yeah.
So
what's one muscle? And I know it's going to be hard to single out one because they're all connected, the connected chain.
Yeah.
If you were to give a suggestion to focus on one muscle that keeps you central, and I don't even know if this is the right question to ask, but it's if there's one muscle group that if that muscle group failed, would throw off everything else. Again, I know everything's connected, so it's probably a kind of a crap question, but is there?
Well, let's talk about ACL injuries for a second. Okay. ACLs have been like crazy out of whack recently. I mean, particularly on the female side, females have been getting ACL tears like crazy with soccer, basketball. It's just been insane. And it's because we're forgetting about the hamstrings. And again, you get this, focus on the quad, and the hamstrings end up becoming the problem because they're weak. And the other thing is like, you tend to have issues, just with weakness in a certain area. The knees tend to be like the area where there's some weakness, and people have been having a ton of ACL tears. So, I mean, I'm just going to say for right now, the hamstring is probably the biggest key for ACL prevention. And so we actually have a program at St. E's and OrthoSensei kind of combined to work on jumping and how people jump. But we notice that if the hamstrings are weak, and the knees are a little bit weak, you start having like this caving in when people land. So their knees kind of come together, and that's just a setup for ACL tears.
The valgus knee?
Yeah, the valgus knee. Wow.
I'm telling you.
Look at you. You're amazing. Yeah. You should have done my job.
You got to work on those. I'm telling you, the amount of exploration I've gone through, the amount of PT equipment I have in this room right behind us here.
Wow.
Trying to just fix myself.
Yep.
And again, it's not that a doctor couldn't or PT couldn't. It's I had everything all at once, and I didn't know what the root cause was.
Right.
Is it ankle instability? Is it knee? Is it, the teardrop muscle? I need to build that up to get around, right?
Right.
So what is that thing? So that's why I enjoy this conversation. I'm like, yeah, I'm living it. I've been there.
Yeah.
Still living it.
And I think that's the lower part of the body. And then the upper part, I was going to mention, I mean, there's so many little muscles up there, right? But it's the scapular stabilizers, and there's 17 or 18. I think there's 17 muscles attached to the scapula. And anyway, that scapula has to get retracted. And if you don't have those strengthened up, you're all of a sudden living like this. And if you try to throw a baseball, for instance, and your scapula is tipped forward, guess what's happening? You're starting to impinge earlier. Now you get labral tears. Now you get undersurface rotator cuff tears. Swimmers, same way, And when we see problems with people that throw a baseball, swim, hit a volleyball, it's people that have issues with those scapular stabilizers a lot of times. Scapula starts to tip forward. It starts getting a little weak. When people kind of bring their arms up in there, they get weak and fatigued. And then they start getting impingement, and then you start getting the tears. So, and it all starts because something was ignored a little bit. So really important. I mean, you can't necessarily isolate, a muscle. I would also say that people forget about the core too. Core is huge. Particularly as you think about energy transfer in sports and how we do things. If you don't focus on the core, that's another big mistake. So also helps to prevent like low back injuries and that type of thing. But, so there's really three main areas for me. It's hamstrings, core, and then scapular stabilizers.
Okay. I'm thinking selfishly of myself right now. I'm like, yep, we'll get to this point later on because I have an example to bring up. But as an orthopedic surgeon, walk me through. All right, you had surgery. You had a surgery this morning. Do you need to get like pumped up for that? Right? Is it pretty? Just another day in the office. Do you have a routine? Do you have a lucky rabbit's foot? Do you you have in your back pocket? What does that look like?
Yeah, no, I appreciate this question. This is a good question. So for me, every day starts with a run or a workout of some kind. So every morning I get up, I do something, unless I'm not feeling well or something's not right with my body, I'll give myself a break. But every day I get up and I do something. Usually it's a run. It might be 5 miles. It might be 3. It might just be get out the door because that gets my mind right. And it's a routine. It's like stepping in the batter's box for me. It's like, I have my routine that I do. And so it's a run. And then I get in the car. I typically take the kids to school. Today it was different because it's Memorial Day. But I actually don't need to be pumped up for surgery. I need to actually kind of, for me, because this is me, I'm a real high energy guy, right? So I actually have to dial it back. That means listening to some easy listening music and rehearsing the surgery in my head. And that's what I do. Actually, the night before, as I rehearse every surgery, I go through their x-rays, I go through everything, and then I mentally go through the surgery. And so it's like a rehearsal for me, mental rehearsal, right? And And then every morning, if I got a particularly difficult case, I rehearse that surgery. So that's kind of my routine, but I actually have to like back off because if I get too juiced, like I don't like caffeine. I kind of am like I'll drink caffeine occasionally on the weekends, but I'm not really a big caffeine person. We met for coffee the other day, but like I'm not huge on caffeine because it gets me too amped. And I want to be at my best during surgery. And I've noticed for me, it's like I've got to be dialed in. And so I don't listen to like, hard rock. I listen to like 70s, like classic rock,
Sure.
Or things that like relax me. That's really why. I think that's gets me into that zone, where I can kind of really just be laser focused.
Yeah.
So
I want to ask that question because you see on, the way television portrays, I know the ER television shows are probably a bit different. There's more like, I don't want to say high stakes, but there's something going on, and you see doctors that like listening to music while they're doing surgery or very, very lively. So it's good to know your routine, and that makes sense. When you're actually operating, then do you listen to music? Do you talk with people? Are you just in there being very meticulous and not that?
People know me. They know I like to listen to like Bruce Springsteen or some classic rock or, something like that in the OR. I do not like Rage Against the Machine, Metallica. I'm like, as soon as I hear that, oh yeah, well, some people listen to that type of stuff. That's what I think people like. You have low energy and high energy people, right? And the low energy people, I think, like to listen to that to kind of get themselves going. For me, like I need to be chill, and that's what gives me focus and, excellence in the OR, right? Being in that zone. But like if I hear that music, I'm like, turn that off, turn that blank off, right? So they know. Everybody knows like this is what I like, and then I typically will talk for the first like maybe 5 minutes. Hey, how's it going? How are you guys doing? What was your weekend like? And that's kind of getting through the very beginning part of the surgery, very routine. But as soon as I get into any deep layers, it's like all the talking goes away, and people are like, you need to speak up, because a lot of times I'll be like this, and then, they're not hearing me. So, but I get super laser focused most of the time and very rarely, talk about anything.
What was the first, when I think about your profession, I think about blood. And not that I don't, like if I cut myself, I'm like, oh, blood, like no big deal.
Yeah.
I do when I give blood or when I have to have a needle in a vein.
Yeah.
Like giving blood, I tend to pass out.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I can have tattoos and I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like, you do that and I'm okay.
Right.
What's it like? And again, it might be a silly question, but from an outside perspective, it's like you're seeing that every day. You're cutting into flesh with a scapula, right? That I'm sure you're numb to it now. It's just a job. It's just like anything else. But maybe that first time, what was it like? Do you have a problem with that when you first started getting into, what you're doing?
So this is a really cool question because I'm going to be totally real and transparent with the audience, right? So I was in college and I knew I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon at that point in time. And I went to Ecuador. And so I took this trip. It was a mission trip. We were delivering vaccines and doing some really cool stuff. And there was 2 docs that we were working with over there. And one of them was just getting to know the town doctors. And we lived in a small town called Pedro Vicente Maldonado. It was about a 10,000 person town just outside of Quito, maybe like 2 hours outside. And you had to take some windy, crazy roads to get there. So pretty small like area. And there was one doctor in the whole town, and he did everything. And one night we were over there, hanging out with this doctor, and we're drinking some rum and just hanging out and just shooting the bull. There's a knock at the door, and we go back, and this guy comes in, and his hand is just covered in blood, just covered. It's terrible. And so I'm like, well, that's crazy. What we can do here, So anyway, we went back and he unwraps his thumb and his hand, and his thumb is just mangled. He's cut it with a machete. He was out in the field working on a machete and just whacked into his thumb. Okay. So I'm like really intrigued because I'm like, I want to do ortho. This is cool. Like, I can't wait to see what we're going to do here. Right. Forget about the rum part. But, anyway, the doctor has to do what they got to do over there. So he starts working, and I'm watching, and I'm starting to get like a little like dizzy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? And I'm starting to get more dizzy, and I'm trying to like fight through it. And I start getting sweaty, and I'm like, I got to sit down. So I sat down, and I was just like, whoa, what just happened? I want to be a surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is not okay. Like, I'm about to pass out here. So anyway, I got through that. I don't think anybody noticed, but they probably did. They're probably like, oh, he's just going to go down. This guy. Yeah.
Put your head between your knees, bud.
Totally. So, total rookie. But anyway, I came back from that, and, it was always in my mind. So like when I got to medical school and I went to my surgery rotation, I was like, okay, this is it. If I can't do it, I'm going to do pediatrics. I basically had a backup plan of like, if it doesn't work out, I start getting sick to my stomach or whatever. But I was okay from there on out. Had no problem with it at all. It was just that first time seeing all that blood and gore, I was like, didn't feel good.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was my blood story. But now it doesn't faze me.
Pretty routine.
So it's routine, but like there's times like I work with fellows and residents, and there's times when you can have some major bleeding. You got to know what to do, and you got to act quickly, and be on your game to make sure that things get taken care of. And it's that part is tough, but it's also like it's when when the rubber meets the road, and you got to be able to perform.
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't have a clue what to do. Like, give me a belt. Somebody wrap it.
Yeah. Well, there's no tourniquets in shoulder surgery. So
Gauze.
you're basically
This thing. Let's go.
You pack it. You can do what you need to do, but you gotta find a solution sometimes.
Yeah. It reminds me of the when Megan, I forget which child it was, but when she had an epidural. And I don't know if they do this anymore. I was told they don't, but because somebody got injured actually doing this. But so they sat my wife at the edge of the bed. The anesthesiologist came in, and I believe this was the first time that I had seen this. So it might have been Cohen.
Mm-hmm.
But he comes in, he goes, on the other side of the bed. She's sitting on this side of the bed. And he's like, "Hey, would you like to hold your wife and like help brace her because she's having contractions?"
Right.
While I try and like get this needle in this very specific spot.
Yeah, it's tough.
And I'm like, okay, of course I can do this. Like, you just want me to brace and hug my wife.
Yep.
So I'm holding her like this, and her head's looking over my shoulder, and I see what he's getting out. And like this package, right, is sanitized or whatever. He opens it, and it's like he unsheathed a sword.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute. That's
a long needle
going in her back in a very specific spot.
Right.
So the nurse in there saw me go white. And she had me sit down, and it wasn't for long, maybe just a second, but I passed out. She had me sit on a stool, put my head between my knees.
Oh yeah.
And I felt like such a baby.
That's the stool of shame.
Yeah.
That's the stool of shame when you.
I was in it. I was in
right.
it. Megan's sitting there like
I was there once. So.
having contractions and pain, and I can't even stand the sight of it.
Yeah. That's when you feel like a true hero. Right?
Yeah.
You're like,
I'm doing it. You're doing great, babe.
Exactly. Keep it up. Way to go. Just somebody give me some ice pack over here.
Right. This is just me making it about me. It was very selfish. I'm like, oh, she's getting all the attention here. Why don't I just make myself pass out?
It happens though, man. It's a natural response because as human beings, we don't like to see blood. We have a natural inclination to avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
We also don't like to see, medical things happen. It's just it's not a natural thing. You have to get past that a little bit if you want to be doing medical type stuff. I had my own experience with it, and it's very real. It's very real. So
it's wild.
Yeah.
Jumping tracks. Talk to me about, and our audience, maybe some context setting, OrthoLive. So you founded this company back in 2017, I believe.
Yeah.
So do you mind just for people listening, give some context into this company that you've started, kind of the intent of it?
Yeah.
The spirit behind it.
Yeah.
Just would love to go there.
So I guess I've always been like a justice person. Like I wanted to, when I got into medicine, wanted to be, doing things for people for the right reasons. And one of the things I noticed in healthcare is that there's a lot of times when people don't have the right access to care. I feel like sometimes there are middlemen in the interaction between a patient and physician that can be, maybe act on the side of greed. So I think, sometimes with insurance and other, areas, we could do it better. Let's just say it that way, So I'd always tried to think about ways that I could maybe help the healthcare system get better. And that was kind of where OrthoLive came in. I tried to think about what if I could take care of a population of people, and how much would that, how much would it take to do that and do it cheaper than people have, that are cared for today. And so I realized that was going to be very expensive to do that. And it was going to be millions and millions of dollars, which I didn't have in residency. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, well, let's let that idea go for a second. But then maybe down the road, there'll be something, God open up some doors for me and I can figure out a way to do it. Well, around end of residency, something called telemedicine started to kind of crop up, and different specialties had telemedicine. It was mainly being used for primary care back in the day, 2012, 2013. So I kept it in the back of my mind. I was like, okay, well, maybe there's a way to create a network of surgeons, orthopedic surgeons, and through that network, take care of patients. And so anyway, OrthoLive kind of came into being when I was looking for a telemedicine system for my practice, and there was nothing available. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give somebody a call. So I called up the CEO of VC. VC ended up being the engine behind something called MD Live, who many of you may have know or heard of. Anyway, the guy who was there, his name is Milton Chen. He was very encouraging about maybe starting my own company and becoming they would be the engine, would create this company, and then we'd put our orthopedic surgeons together and have something. So anyway, I was like, you know what? Probably had nearing 40 years old moment where I was like, I got to do something, I got to do something big and try it, So anyway, we made this company and then got this system together, and then we started selling it to orthopedic practices. And that's kind of how we got enough providers to start talking to companies. And of course, COVID hit right in the middle of all that, which kind of shot us to the moon for a second. And then free platforms came. And then these free platforms sort of knocked out all of the revenue that we had created. So it was this big, it was tough. I mean, there's so many hurdles and things we've faced over the years, but it's been a great journey. But anyway, that was the reasoning behind it, was really trying to do something where I could create a network and do value-based care. Mm-hmm. So how can we, improve the way the care is delivered, do it quickly, do it in a way that provides justice for the employer and the employee, that they get what they're paying for. And so that's kind of where things started. But yeah, we'll see where it goes.
And for context for listeners, I'll use myself as an example here, and then you can tell me where OrthoLive would step in and help remove some of the friction. So I get hurt at the job, and so I'll use my own story. I get hurt. Okay, I don't necessarily know where to go first. Maybe I go to an urgent care, primary care. In the sense that I've hurt something that is, and most times I would say you then get referred to a specialist, right? So then you go to a specialist, you get evaluated, then you have to go get an MRI. Then you have to come back for the MRI results. Then after the results, and again, I'm probably wrong here, so correct me if I'm wrong, but then you have to come back to someone like you. You would potentially PT for 6 weeks as a first thing. And then if not, you look at other options, maybe surgery is one of those, et cetera. So there's multiple layers in this process.
Right.
In my mind, multiple different places of friction in regards to everybody's busy, number one. Number two, I'll tend to not put my own care first, right? Especially with 4 kids. So I will find reasons where I need to go to the doctor. Getting there is so hard, right? Getting out of work, doing this, that, or another. Okay, you get out of work, you go to the doctor. Then you need to go an MRI. That takes an hour or two. Then you come back and get the results. So it's this kind of you need to do it, but somehow you still don't do it type thing.
Yeah.
So OrthoLive steps in here and helps remove some of that friction, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head in multiple areas there, where somebody gets hurt on the job. That's typically called work comp. Somebody gets hurt on the job, they've got a work comp situation. It's even more complicated than if you're just twist your ankle at home, because there's people that intervene on the occupational health side. They're trying to save the employer money. Okay. And I'll just use Concentra as an example. Concentra is one of the, urgent cares that people might go to. There's hundreds of others, but they go to that place, and their job at Concentra is what we call fee-for-service medicine. They see them, they treat them. They may order physical therapy. Okay. So they're trying to get them better without getting to the specialist. They want to avoid the specialist. And so you might do PT for 6 weeks, like you mentioned. Nothing's getting better. You're still having problems. And then we're going to get referred to the specialist. All right. Finally getting to the specialist. Okay. Now it's 4 weeks to see the specialist, right? So now you got 4 more weeks. Now you've been 10 weeks at the job. Know you're hurt. Know you're probably bad hurt because you didn't get better with physical therapy. And now you're waiting 4 more weeks to see the specialist. Yeah. And then the specialist is like, yep, you're bad hurt. You got something bad going on. You're going to get the MRI. All right, I'm going to get the MRI. It's going to be great. Going to get the MRI, right? Next thing you know, 3 weeks later, you get the MRI. Now it's been 13 weeks, and you're just now getting to a diagnosis, right? That's the problem with the whole system is screwed up because you're not getting the expert first. You're not getting a diagnosis right away. You're going to an urgent care where that person may have, they may be trained in primary care,
right?
Emergency medicine.
Which I feel like most of the times I'm generalizing, but it feels like that's the case.
Right. That's 100% the case, right? You don't have orthopedic surgeons working at the urgent care.
No. Right.
And unfortunately, our medical system is such that we don't train people in musculoskeletal care. We train them in primary care. And that's what we do for an obvious reason. Most people are primary care specialists and most people need primary care. But the surgeons know about the musculoskeletal side and the physical therapists do to some degree and the athletic trainers do. So, but the problem is that they're not in medical school, just the orthopedic surgeons in medical school. So when you go to a doctor and they're, treating you for whatever problem they have, you are not getting the expert when you go to those urgent cares. And so you're not getting the diagnosis that you need to actually say, here's what's wrong, So we've kind of flipped that model completely on its head. And we said, all right, let's take athletic trainers and we'll put them at the front end. Athletic trainers work with, the professional sports teams. They know when something is wrong. They know when there's, a problem, and they are very good at diagnosing injuries as well. But what they do in addition is they get people connected with the surgeons when there's a real big problem. So, I work with the Yankees and some other professional sports organizations and college sports organizations. And what they do is they connect the trainer with the surgeon. So when something really bad's going on, they get the surgeon involved right away. So we took that model and we applied it to the industrial athlete. So now the industrial athlete has the ability to get the expert right away. And now I can get an MRI within 2 days if I need to. So yeah, that's the cool part.
Yeah, that's great. So this is through, it's telemedicine. So when you think about I equate it to, and we've mentioned this before, but like teledoc, right? If I'm sick and I want to go see a doctor and I know I have a sinus infection, I just need to get a Z-Pack or something.
Yeah.
So with orthopedic care, how does that work, right? Because I know you've been asked this question before.
Yeah.
But I'm going somewhere with this. That's why I asked it again.
I like it.
So walk me through that, and then I want to use a real world example. So
cool.
Telemedicine, but for orthopedic care. So typically, in my experience with all my things, I'd go in and somebody would need to evaluate me, pull on some things, and check my range of motion, et cetera. Yeah. And you can do, I would assume, most of that through the phone or through telemedicine.
Correct. Yeah, and it's interesting. When I first started doing this, people were like, well, you are nuts. What are you doing? Orthopedics is clearly a specialty where you have to touch and feel and find out what's wrong. And just like everybody's always said from the very beginning in medicine, 90% of it is the history. And about 10% is the physical exam. There's certain things I can't feel when I'm doing telemedicine. Sure, you're absolutely right. But if you tell me, and we could pick one of your injuries, for example.
We're going to.
Okay.
We're going to. Yeah, that's where we're going with this.
So, okay. But I mean, let's say you fall and you felt something go on with your shoulder. You're not sure what happened, but you think maybe it might have come out of place and then gone back in. You're not really sure. Well, chances are you got a labral tear until proven otherwise, and you need an MRI, right? I can at least tell you when you need an MRI. Okay. And so that's the whole point. Like, we don't have to be perfect right out of the gate. We just have to know whether you need imaging or not.
Yeah.
And that's what has allowed us to be so successful, because I can listen to anybody's story and say, you don't need it. You need x-rays, or, you don't need anything. You just need time.
Yeah.
Right. Or I can say, ooh, that doesn't sound good. Sounds like you might have X, Y, or Z. Let's go ahead and get the MRI so that we know what's going on.
Yeah. Okay. So real world example.
Let's do it.
We're going to do it right
Let's
here.
do it.
So I'm calling you on the phone. And this is funny because I brought this injury up to you like, I don't know, 9-10 months ago.
Okay.
And it's an exact example of why OrthoLive would probably be great if I had access to that resource.
Yeah.
Because pure procrastination, kids, life has gotten in the way of me doing anything about this. So I'm going to be selfish here in asking this, but we're going to do a real example. You can't.
That's good.
No,
I get to interview you though.
yes,
I get to ask questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. HIPAA. Yeah, I'm signing off on that here.
Okay.
But we'll do it to where you won't touch me or evaluate me. We'll just act like I'm on the phone.
Sounds good.
So my left shoulder.
Okay.
Pain. About 9 or 10 months ago, I was walking at a wheelbarrow, maybe 50 pounds in it.
Yep.
Was coming down the hill here on the side yard.
Yep.
The grass was wet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm barefoot because I'm from Kentucky and I like to be barefoot. I do everything barefoot. So I slipped and I fell. So as I'm going down the hill, the heavy wheelbarrow, I went to catch myself. So I put my arm back and I jammed it up like this. I kind of jammed it into my ear. So it was sore for a while. Ice, all the things.
Yeah.
So that was the incident that took place. I will say, just looking at me, which is you have me do over the phone as well.
Yeah.
I can put my arm over my head.
Right.
You know, I have range of motion.
Right.
I have, you know, sometimes down into my left hand, I'll have numbness like into my pinky.
Yep.
Right now I have a little bit of right here behind the shoulder. I have a little bit of radiating pain, which is pretty constant. But again, like I'll still do shoulder day.
Yeah.
And I'll still do everything that I'm probably not supposed to be doing. But in my mind, I'm building up the muscle. I'm probably going to do some of that in PT anyway. So that's what I noticed too, I have like a little bit of shoulder hike.
Yep.
And I only know this because I do too much, but I feel it tight up here. I'll feel like the shoulders kind of rising.
Yep.
It just wants to sit up here more for comfort than anything. So that's my case.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you a few questions.
Yes, please.
This is where we start to get into the diagnosis area, right? So let's say you do shoulder day and you take weights out away from your body and you go out straight in front of your body. Does that hurt you or are you okay doing that?
I can do it, but I do notice there's a little bit of a pop on the left side. And I specifically know this, and it's not like a painful pop. Mm-hmm. It's almost like it, in my mind, again, trying to diagnose myself, I'm like, I have some inflammation there. It's probably rubbing up against a tendon or something.
Right.
I don't know, but I still do it.
Okay. So you can get through it, but you get sort of a pop or a click. Do you get clicking and popping when you do range of motion? So you bring your arms back. You feel any clicking or popping?
No.
Okay. Touch the top of your shoulder right here.
With my left hand or right hand?
With your right hand. Yeah. Push down right there.
Uh-huh.
Does that cause you any pain? You're good. Okay. So one of the areas I'm ruling out there is the AC joint, because a lot of times when people fall, they can fall on their shoulder. Typically, they get AC sprains. Okay. But you land it on your hand, so it's much more likely that you've got a labral injury or you got a small rotator cuff tear.
Great.
Okay?
Not what we want to hear. Cool.
But, but that's what I'm saying. So like very easy for me to say, okay, here's what's going on. Now, how do I figure that out? Well, I've got physical exam if I'm in the office, but what am I going to do if I'm in the office and you come strolling in and I do a physical exam and I say, maybe a labral tear or maybe a rotator cuff tear. What am I going to do?
You're going to send it for imaging.
I'm going to send you for an MRI.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to get you an MRI. So we're going to order an MRI for you. So without really having the diagnosis defined whether rotator cuff or labrum, I could do some things. I could have you like hold a book up in front of you and go up. And if you have a lot of weakness, I'd say it's probably rotator cuff. But, I can really define it just by the history alone that you probably need an MRI, Jordan. I would say it's probably time. It's been several months. You're not getting better. Yeah. So that's what's next. But yeah, I would probably venture to say it's one of those two things. And the fact that it's a click, I'd probably be leaning more towards labrum, than I would towards rotator cuff. But, not going to definitely say, and I probably wouldn't even say in the office, definitely, because, there's a lot more things that we can tell unless you're fully weak. And if you can do arm day, you would be otherwise telling me you're weak as heck. And then I'd tell you, okay, you got a rotator cuff problem.
Yeah. So I don't want to not do arm day because I feel like if I miss it,
it's important.
Yeah, it's very important, especially summer approaching.
Yeah.
I think that's a great example of, again, if somebody were to call, you've just, number one, you've eliminated an urgent care or primary care first. So that would be one visit. Secondly, I've now eliminated the friction of going into an office and waiting, etc. I can schedule time and call. I'm clearly love the idea because it applies to my real life and the exact reason why I haven't taken care of the things that I've needed to take care of. So I just wanted to, I was sitting on that. I'm like, oh yeah, we're gonna do a real world example. It's gonna be awesome. So
it's cool. Yeah.
What motivates you in regards to, you had mentioned before kind of how when you go into surgery, you need to come back down, you need to stay calm, etc. But maybe on those days when you're not performing surgery or when you start at OrthoLive, I mean, you got a lot going on, right? Between, again, I don't need the laundry list of all the things that you are and that you do. Where do you seek inspiration? I'm thinking of like, I know before, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. This is where it's coming from. It's like, we talked about like David Goggins and listening to people, be it a podcast or some motivational, like where do you seek that inspiration?
Yeah, I think, so a lot of this for me is the person that is able to articulate the things that I feel every day. So like a David Goggins character for me is the person who, never gives up, is always, testing his body, testing the limits of what he can do. You listen to him, he basically talks about finding something he never thought was possible. And for me, like that has always been like, oh, maybe I can make the cross country team at Notre Dame. Maybe, if I give it enough effort, maybe it'll happen. And it happened, maybe start this company, and maybe it'll be successful. Maybe it'll do something to hopefully change the world in a positive way. And it happened, but to me, it's like these internal things that I feel to try to, to achieve something. I find motivation in people that are able to articulate it well. I'm probably not articulating it super well right now.
Oh, it makes sense. You want to find somebody that resonates with you.
Yeah.
Or that can put into words what you're feeling, kind of like good music or a good song.
Totally. I mean, that to me, like I find motivation in people that have a mentality that I try to, emulate. That's what I love. I do find motivation in that. The other thing that motivates me is my team. So just the fact that I have a team that is going every day working to achieve a goal of improving healthcare for everybody, like that makes me want to get up every day and do that, you know? So that's OrthoLive for me. Like that motivates me beyond, a lot of things.
Sure.
It's just that. And then the patient on the other side motivates me because, that person is counting on me to do a great job. So, but that's why I get up every day and do the many things, because I really enjoy that, and I think, it's like the team of OrthoLive, and then it's people that are an inspiration like Goggins and others.
Yeah. You mentioned people too, in regards to patients that you've cared for without breaking HIPAA. Is there a broad story, or there's got to be something really cool in regards to helping somebody get back on the road to recovery, or if it's a young person who's trying to get back into sports or whatever? And I'm sure this happens more often than not, but is there a time or a moment when you like kind of had that calcification, if you will, of like, man, I chose the right thing and I'm doing good? Was there a moment after a surgery or after somebody recovered from, again, without getting into details because of HIPAA, was there a moment like that for you when you just knew this was the right thing?
I mean, every day it's amazing. People come back and they've been having pain for so long, and pain can be so debilitating for people, right? And you're able to change that. And like they come in and they're like, thank you. That thank you moment is all I need. I mean, that's why I never want to give up surgery. I could be a CEO, whatever, founded, whatever. I don't ever want to give that up, because it's one person. It's making that connection with one-to-one. Like you just help that person, and when they come in and they're thankful, it is everything. I mean, there is nothing better in the world. And to me, like, I'm a mechanic. I'm not that smart. I just know how to fix things, right?
Yeah.
That is what's so cool about this profession, because when you go into it and you can fix something that's broken, or you can, help somebody with their arthritis pain they've been dealing with or whatever, like that is to me, like the best. There's no better feeling. I'm getting chills like just talking about it, man, because it's like so cool when somebody comes in and thanks you for changing their life in a positive way. That's special.
Were you always like that? Were you like that as a kid growing up? You always wanted to help others, or, you know, an empathetic person?
I always wanted to be somebody's hero.
Yeah.
That's the best way I could say it. I always wanted to be somebody's hero. And whether that was saving somebody on the side of the road that was, you know, in a car accident, I don't know why. I just always dreamt about that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Like pulling somebody out of a burning building.
Dude, I have the same things.
Isn't that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
or it's like, mine are a little bit more dark sometimes. I don't mean to cut you off.
Oh, yeah. Go.
But it's like if somebody came into, and this is a horrific thing to say out loud, but this is where my mind goes. And nowadays I think of like active shooters.
Yeah.
And I went really dark. I went here. Yeah. But I'm like, I'd be that guy.
Yeah.
I'd be that guy who, at least I think that I would. I don't know what I'd be like in the moment, but I always think about saving others.
Right.
Like I will step in front of that thing, or I will dive in front of that person and do that thing.
Yeah.
And I find great reward in that. Again, don't know if I'd actually do it, but in my mind, I put myself in that position.
Absolutely. That is, I think, just so cool, you know, and it's like, I think there are a lot of people out there that are good people that have that same mentality. And, you know, we hear so much negative right in the world, but to hear you speak that and know that, like, I thought that same thing, like with other situations, that I wanted to be that person. When you're a kid, you're dreaming of helping. You're a helper, right? Like that's who you are, like inside. There's something really special about that. And I don't know what percentage of people are out there that have these thoughts, but that was who I wanted to be. Sounds like you're the same way. And I mean, that's special. That means like inside you're a good person, and that's cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just, yeah, that was me. It sounds like it was you too. It's really cool. It's cool to hear somebody else say that too.
Yeah. I find myself seeking out those situations too.
Yeah.
And not that I put myself in any and harmless way, but I almost, and I don't, again, this all sounds very weird. I don't wish for it to happen, but I know that if it does, like last year up by Thomas More Parkway, there was an accident. Mm-hmm. Some woman came, I guess, I don't know if she wasn't paying attention. She came and she ended up hitting a pole.
Yep.
I was in my truck. I didn't think twice about it. I took my truck over. I curbed it right next to the vehicle. I jumped in that car, you know, seeing if she's okay. She was pregnant. She's got blood coming off her face, airbags deployed. I'm in it with her, and I'm just, like, there's no place I would rather be.
Yeah. That brings tears to my eyes a little bit, because it's like I've had 2 occasions where there's been a car accident and I've stopped. There was one where I was driving to go run in the morning, like, you know, 6:37. There was a car flipped over on 71 and cars are zipping by. I just pulled in the left lane and got over there, and the girl was okay, thank God. But it was like, actually, there's been 3 now that I think about it, times where I've gotten out of my car and just try to help. But you know, that's special when, you know, people do that type of thing. So, I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, you're the right person to be in a scene. Right?
Yeah.
I'm like,
the orthopedic surgeon. I'm like, man, like, you don't want me.
What do you want me to do?
I'll be only I'll be doing is stabilizing the neck and the pelvis. Yeah. It was funny. My wife and I were just time for a quick story. My wife and I were in North Carolina. We're driving. My buddy and I, we'd hiked and like took our families on a hike and stuff. And so we're coming back, and there's a couple motorcycles in front of us. And so we're going around a bend and we hear this kunk, right? And I'm like, what was that? You know, and I come up, and both the motorcycles or it was just one motorcycle, 2 people. The motorcycle's like tipped over, and there's 2 people just laying on the ground. So my wife and I, we pull off. My wife's a nurse. She doesn't even hesitate, runs to the scene with us. We got kids in the back, and we just say, stay in the back of the car, whatever. So we run over, and the person I am evaluating was not good. Like blue lips, everything purple. It was really bad. So my wife's evaluating the other gentleman that's there, and I'm like, Molly, come over here, because Molly's trained in ER, okay, and I am an orthopedic surgeon. So I'm like, I don't feel a pulse. Do you feel a pulse? She's like, no, I don't feel a pulse. Okay, so what do? I go up and I'm holding C-spine. You know, my wife is doing compressions, and the orthopedic surgeon is holding C-spine. My wife is an ER nurse. Anyway, we're working on this patient for, you know, seemed like hours. It was really minutes. The next person to arrive on the scene was a cardiac nurse.
No way.
So she comes up, and we're in the middle of nowhere in North Carolina, okay? So she comes up, she starts doing compressions. And then finally the ambulance shows up. And right about the time when the ambulance was showing up, this person started to like move a little bit. And we had saved her. I say we, it was really my wife and the cardiac nurse. I had nothing to do with it. But this person came back and we got an EKG on them. They were doing okay. And she just started complaining of chest pain, which of course, we had been, doing a lot of work on her chest, obviously, to get her blood pumping. But I never found out what happened to that woman after she got air flighted out. But it was an amazing story of, something bad happening. And my wife, who's a nurse, just, ran over. I ran over doing my ortho thing, which was, very, very little, just holding the neck, but watch my wife do
the shoulder's out of place, Molly.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm joking.
Honey, yeah. But it's pretty amazing. She was a true hero,
Yeah. I didn't know Molly was a nurse.
Yeah, Molly's a nurse. She was an ER nurse at Children's Hospital. So
your home is well equipped then to tackle a lot.
I'm always the one freaking out. I'm like, we have croup. It's a bad situation. Kid's not breathing. She's like, no, it's fine. We're good. You need to just relax. I'm like, okay.
That's why she's so calm under pressure.
Yeah, she can handle it.
Yeah,
she can handle it.
I get that sense from her. Not that I don't get that from you as well, but she has an aura about her that's very calm with 5 kids, and you also have a lot going on.
Yeah, she can handle it. She's amazing that way. Yeah, she's got the ability to just stay chill.
That's incredible. Man, I don't even know where to go after we just went down that road.
We did. We did. Yeah, it's just that hero thing though is real. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are probably like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just you don't really. Unless somebody else says it, it's not one of those things that you just come out and say.
No, I mean,
oh, hey.
This may have been the only time I've ever said this in my life, right? So,
yeah, not a drinking conversation with your buddies and just hey guys, did you know that I just want to step in front of a bullet one day? Right. That's pretty cool, right?
Right.
Like, Jordan, are you okay?
See, that's taking it to a whole different level. I've always thought about helping people in their time of distress, but never thought about stepping in front of a bullet.
Yeah.
That's at a whole different level.
Well, again, that there's the thought of it and there's the actual action of doing it. But I've thought about any situation I go to, I'm analyzing if I go to a restaurant, a movie theater, whatever. And I don't want to have that negative mindset all the time. It's not negative. I'm self-aware. And I'm like, okay, I've got a phone and I've got a drink. This is literally where my mind goes. If something were to happen, I have 2 projectiles, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm just thinking about causing chaos. If I see chaos, I'm also going to cause chaos to help deter, get people So I'm like, okay, got this hot cup of coffee here and I've got my phone. Something happens, I'm throwing this coffee at said person or thing.
Yeah.
And I've got a phone to chuck to. That'll give me 5 seconds to then tackle said person.
Yeah.
And that's
you would have been like a special forces guy. You know what I'm saying? Another life.
Yeah, that's where my mind goes all the time. And it's pretty weird.
Well, again, it kind of, I think there's some people that are just sort of like that, where they just start imagining things, and they're probably the best FBI agents or the best, special forces people, because they're always, we talk about that on the soccer field, what are you going to do when you get the ball? When you get the ball, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Right? You got to be thinking about that ahead of time. And, there's people that go into situations when I go to a restaurant, I'm thinking about, let me get that great pasta dish that I want to do. I'm not thinking about, when somebody breaks in this door and has a gun, is wielding a gun, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
I don't do that, but you do.
Right? Oh, I'm I'll never sit my back to a door. I'm always the first person at the table facing the door. And again, it's not this paranoid thing.
Yeah.
It's, I guess maybe it is a little bit paranoid, but I just want to be ready. I want to be ready.
Preparation. Yeah. So, pretty cool.
So what would you say then to somebody, as we've kind of gone down this road of helping people, if there's someone young who's listening or who thinks they have this calling or maybe a similar calling that you have, what would you say to them in regards to if they're 17 years old and they're like, I think I want to get into medicine. I think I want to be an orthopedic surgeon. What advice do you have for said person?
Oh man, I love talking to kids about this because, if they have that dream that they want to do that, it is important to get exposure, so they want to volunteer. You want to make sure you get get into the situation a little bit so you can confirm this is what you want to do. Because it's not all rainbows and butterflies. There's a lot of hard work that goes into, achieving that, whether it's becoming a nurse, becoming an orthopedic surgeon, becoming a professor, doing research, anything, all those things kind of are, they're a grind, just like anything else in life. You got to put in the effort, but getting exposure is key. So like just, going and volunteering, finding time with the surgeon if you want to be a surgeon, or, in the ER if you want to, whatever. Once that happens and you do like get galvanized that's what you want to do, then it's a matter of like, okay, how are my studies? How are my grades doing? Do I need to like, buckle down a little bit more, or, spend some time like with a tutor? Like I spent time with a tutor, just trying to like get myself good from a writing perspective, because I wasn't a great writer. And, I worked through that. Like in my fellowship, they were like, well, you got some problems with your writing. Like, I mean, I've made it through like a lot of years of schooling, and they're like, you can't write for crap. You need to get it together. So I got a tutor and I started working, and, it's just like anything I've done. But like if you notice an area of weakness, go like attack that weakness, get yourself right so that you can get through the MCAT, do your classes, do your Princeton review, or cap on whatever course you need to do. So you're ready, Right. Those are, I think, just keys to just persevering through like little areas of weakness you want to identify and work through.
Okay. I'm going to ask, I have so many more questions, but I'm going to ask one last question because right now I'm thinking of time and you getting to the lake house. No, I'm not taking that time from you. What are you most excited about in the future of medicine? And as we think about technology and advancements in surgery, right? Like you could probably do a shoulder operation with just a pinhole size, insert, incision in somebody. And when I think about that and the advancement of technology, what are you excited about in regard? Not even, it can be shoulder, could be not.
Yeah. So there's a couple. Do you mind if I go through a couple different things?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I think there's really some major things happening from a medical perspective right now. So AI is going to change everything with medicine. The reason it's going to change it is not from a just diagnostics perspective and like making physicians better, although it will do that. It's going to make physicians' jobs a lot easier. And a lot of that is you hear people talking about the documentation, the paperwork, all of those things. AI is going to solve all of that so that we're not sitting there with our backs to the patient typing away when we're supposed to be having a conversation. And that's one thing that's my pet peeve is like, if we're going to have somebody come in the office, I'm going to sit down, look them in the eye, and we're going to have a conversation. We're going to talk about what's going on, and I'm not going to document. So I have a scribe that does all that. But in the future, AI is going to change that so that there won't be scribes. It'll just be happening from the conversation that we've had.
That's great.
Everything will be documented.
I've seen some of those things, by the way. There's these little transcribers. It almost looks like a credit card.
Right.
And I think it's powered by ChatGPT or something in regards to transcribing.
That's
I mean, cut you off, but
that's the next step.
Use.
Totally. And it's like, that's what's going to happen in the next 5 years. And then there's going to be more. And the thing that really fires me up about shoulder, and something I've been working on a lot, is rotator cuff sparing shoulder replacement. And there's other technologies that are really like, that'll help us to do that. But in the shoulder, that's the next evolution. Mm-hmm. And so we developed a rotator cuff sparing shoulder replacement from the back of the shoulder. And we've been doing that for a long time now. But what's going to help to elevate that game is going to be robotics. And robotics is just now coming on the scene with ortho. And so it's not like a robot doing the procedure.
I've always wanted to
think about it. Yeah, it's not like, robot riding.
Like building a car with like a metal arm just.
Yeah, but it's sort of like that though, where, we'll do the exposure, the robot will do the cut. So now like the cuts are now perfect and everything's precise. So that is kind of next level of evolution in orthopedic surgery is using robotics. We have it for hip and knee. We'll have it for shoulder now. So there's just some really cool technology. There's other stuff too now, other different types of technologies that are out there. But it's pretty special. Like all of this is coming around, and it's just a neat time to be in medicine.
That's wild. Great. Well, thanks for, we're going to do this again. I have so many more questions.
Sounds good, man.
But it was awesome having you. Excited about, everything you have going on once you get away to the lake this weekend.
Thanks.
Look forward to watching everything you do with OrthoLive. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Jordan. Enjoy it.
Take care.
All right. Thank you.
You've been listening to Turn This Off. We love people, and we love talking to people to hear their stories, the journeys, the struggles, and the triumphs. From athletes to artists, from scientists to CEOs, anyone who brings something unique to the table. Who knows? Maybe you'll be our next guest. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you got something from it. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at Turn This Off Podcast. And by the way, thanks for not turning it off. See you next time on Turn This Off.